Hi, everybody. Welcome to Transcend Talks, where we talk to elite talents and learn about their graduate school experiences and career progress. Today, we're really fortunate to have Will
Cho.
Chiou with us today. He's a graduate of IMD MBA program, and privileged to have him here in our office today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Welcome, Will. Could you introduce yourself for a minute or two?
Sure.
Thanks.
Will Cho. I am the graduate of IMD MBA class of 2017. And before IMD, I had about 8 years of experience in consumer packaged good marketing. And after IMD, my first role was the APAC marketing manager for McDonald's Pizza International. And last June, I relocated to Taiwan. So I'm now heading the strategy and insights team for Domino's Taiwan.
Thank you very much. So, I've known you for a few years. I think you applied to MBA programs about 7 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, about 7 years.
2016-ish.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I really like about this job is not only working with people and building strategies and telling stories, but it's really rewarding to see what happens afterwards, to see that progress,
Yeah.
which is often really interesting and amazing. So I hope to learn some of Will's progress today.
Sure.
But would you mind like going back to 2016 and telling us about what triggered this motivation to get an MBA? You'd been working for, you said 8 years,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
then made this decision. Could you talk about that decision?
Sure. So before IMD, I worked for a Fortune 500 consumer packaged good company. It's a really big company, and it's in the tobacco industry, so it's really highly regulated. So it actually moves very slow. It's like a dinosaur. And over time, as the company grew, they kind of add more people, more processes, more systems into the company. And although I was the brand manager, but I didn't feel like I was making an impact, largely because of all the processes I had to go through, all of the different stakeholders I had to align. And eventually, I just feel like I was creating presentations, right? Kind of aligning, is the text right? Is the font right? Is the color right? And
So you
that
didn't
was,
have the space for creativity or strategy.
even if I did, I still have to compromise with legal team, with corporate affairs team, because it's a regulated industry. So I felt really frustrated. Um, and I think secondly, it's probably a learning that I had acquired after I graduated from IMD was when you have like your personal purpose and vision, when that is aligned with the company's purpose and vision, I think that you will go a long way. But for me at that time, I worked for Philip Morris. I didn't.
The name comes out.
Yeah, I just didn't. I just always feel like there was a void.
Okay.
Yeah, in my heart, I wasn't. I didn't feel like I was creating like meaningful change.
But instead of switching jobs, you went for MBA.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that decision?
Yeah, I think it
why
was.
you thought an MBA was the right choice instead of a job change?
Yeah, to be really frank, like it was hard for me to get out of the tobacco industry because in tobacco, normally the pay and compensation is above industry average. And then the skill sets is not easy to transfer to, for example, like really traditional CPG companies. Yeah, like
Consumer packaged goods.
yeah,
CPG.
consumer packaged goods.
Okay, got it. And then back to the MBA application experience, if you can remember.
Oh yeah.
Any takeaways from that? It's been a while.
It was a really big challenge, especially I think around prioritizing your time. Yeah, on one hand, when you work, you want to excel at your job, but after work, you have to prepare for a GMAT. I think I took what three or four times. So it was a really grueling process. And then you have to prepare for essays. I think on weekends we often discuss about the strategy and how should I prepare for the interviews. Right?
Yeah, even sometimes on the weekends. That's how dedicated we are.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk to the clients on the weekend.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes.
Sometimes over beer, which is a fond memory that I had when I worked with you back then. And then yeah, on top of that, you also have to have to spare some time for yourself and your family. So for me, that time when I applied for MBA, the prioritization was really, really, really challenging. Secondly, I think is how do you manage anxiety and uncertainty? I still remember like during the IMD MBA, we had this assessment day where I had to,
Mm,
book a ticket, book a hotel, and just fly all the way from Taiwan to a country that I've never been there before. And, you know, knowing that you've spent so much time into preparing for the assessment day, but not knowing whether you will be accepted or not, I think that was a lot of
mm,
self-doubt and a lot
mm.
of anxiety that I had to manage. But after going through all that process, I feel I've grown. And I think that was one of the biggest learnings during that MBA application process.
Do you think just the application process itself, you call it a growth
Hmm.
period of
Yeah,
just going through that for 6 months or a year,
definitely.
kind of like helped you be more resilient
Oh,
or
yeah, for sure. For
okay.
sure.
So I think the message is this is not going to be easy. It's going to be grueling at sometimes. You may even feel anxiety, but if you learn to manage it and focus, the application in itself could be a big learning process, right?
Yeah, it makes you stronger.
And then I think you were targeting European MBA programs
Yes.
back then. Could you talk about that choice? Why European MBA? Why not US MBA? And maybe the choices that you made?
Yeah. I think when I applied to, or when I thought of MBA, I was already in my late 20s, early 30s. So in terms of my profile, I think I'm not a really competitive target for USB schools.
Mm.
And then, I took 4 times my GMAT, and my final score is 690, so I never had the chance to go beyond that. So yeah, I felt like European B schools, in that regard, was a better fit for me. Also, largely because I've lived in the United States for a long time, so I wanted to also see, Europe. I've never been there before, and I
Mm.
felt like the international profiles in IMD and NCI and those European business schools was a better fit for me.
I think in the end you targeted 1 year programs, right? Which is
Yeah.
obviously a huge difference from 2 year programs. Most of the programs in
Yeah.
the US are 2 years, obviously. 2 years compared to 1 year, a massive difference.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that choice, what to expect in a 1 year program? I know you never did a 2 year program, but just what could someone expect in a 1 year program that they might not think of?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very tight. So essentially, you're trying to learn everything and kind of unpack that in a year. So I think just before you get into that 1 year MBA program, it's very important to have a really clear objective, what you want to get out of that program,
Mm.
especially in terms of the career or the functions that you want to explore. I think you need to be mentally prepared for that before you enter the MBA,
Mm.
a 1 year MBA.
You have put more thought into your career plan and what
Yeah,
you hope your learning outcome will be because you don't have much time to
yeah,
explore. Is that what you mean?
yeah. Like 2 years, you have your summer internship.
Mm.
It's a lot of time to reflect, right? But 1 year program, you just have to be very clear. Like there's not a lot of time for you to try this and try that. You have to be brutally efficient.
At the end of the day, the choice and the admission was IMD, so it's a business school in Switzerland. Could you talk a little bit about the school and the program for those of us who are not familiar with it?
Oh, sure. So IMD is a business school, based in Lausanne, Switzerland. It has a really small class size. I think during my cohort, we only had 90 classmates.
Mm.
Yeah, so unlike
Quite small.
very small, like, compared to other even European business school or USB schools, like we're just like a very like mini MBA program. But because of that size, I think what's really unique to IMD is the alumni network is very close knit. Like
Mm.
when find someone on LinkedIn, you send them a message, normally he would reply you. Like
Mm.
I'm not sure what's the case in other B schools, but at least for me, when I research IMD, I get a message from most of the alumni that I. And secondly, I would say IMD has a really international student body. Like in my cohort, we had 44 or 45 different nationalities. That's from a
Mm.
class of 90, so extremely diverse.
Mm.
And lastly, I think what really is unique to the IMD MBA program is the school's leadership development stream. We also call
Okay.
it the PDE, Personal Development Electives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure, sure. I think that's the reason why I chose IMD. actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea how that works. So for the first 6 months or 3 or 4 months, I can't remember exactly because it was a little bit long time ago, but
Mm.
you'll be working with a group of 6 to 7 classmates, and very diverse, different functional background, different nationalities, and you guys will have to work closely through the first half of the curriculum. So you got to complete homework, do presentations in a really, really tight deadline.
Mm.
And what's different, unlike business setting, where you have more clarity on your roles, responsibilities, and there's a certain level of clarity on decision making. In IMD, like everyone's equal, their own opinion. So how do you kind of align all of those different perspectives and complete the assignments before the deadline was a huge challenge for all of us. So there was actually a lot of emotions going through debate,
Mm.
argument, compromise, crying happens as well. That's
When the
how.
emotion comes out, sometimes
Oh yeah,
tears happen.
oh yeah. Like in my group, we had a Chinese lady, and she's an entrepreneur, but she always felt like her opinion wasn't valued.
Mm.
And those were the things that we had to figure out within our group. And
Mm.
that is when the PDE comes in. It's basically a series of in classroom teaching, lecturing, and then essay writing, a lot of group feedback sessions, group assignments, activities, and one-to-one counseling, leadership coaching. And the purpose of that is really to help you develop more self-awareness. Because I think at IMD we strongly believe in order for you to become a better leader, you have to develop at least a certain level of self-awareness.
Mm.
Once you understand where your blind spots are, then you can have a better understanding of what is your role in the group. How are
Mm.
you changing that group dynamics? And what is your behavior when conflict arises? And then those leadership development electives will kind of help you navigate through the challenge during the first half. And the second half of the MBA program is, I think, it's even more interesting. It's when you are assigned to a new group. So hopefully by then you would already have developed a certain level of understanding of yourself, your
Mm.
your blind spots, and
Mm.
then you kind of take all those learnings into the second group, where you will be assigned to a real company, a real consulting engagement. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of like how that entire PDE works.
So is it fair to say that, I mean, you're learning core business courses and hard skills, and then the purpose of this is to kind of give you a chance to apply it and develop your soft skills
Yeah,
at the same time, and
yeah,
your EQ
yeah. Your
as
EQ,
well.
your leadership qualities.
Sounds very interesting and challenging, but I'd like to go back to something you mentioned before, which is the
Mm.
assessment.
Right.
Because a lot of MBA programs interview, but I think IMD's process is really different and unique.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth discussing briefly about that assessment.
Sure.
And I think now that COVID's over, they'll start to do it in person again
Yeah.
going forward. Could you just give us a little introduction of what that was like?
I think that day is basically it consists of different interviews. Like there's a individual interview where you are kind of required to answer some of your aspirations on why IMD, why MBA. Talked a little bit about your resume, like what is your leadership experience, what you want to get out of that.
So that's like a traditional
Yeah,
type of interview.
yes. And then there is a group interview session where they will have admission officers kind of observing on how you work inside the group. You
Mm-hmm.
will basically be given a couple of topics to discuss. You will have to kind of deliver a small presentation at the end of that discussion, and basically they will just observe and see how you guys figured it out. And I think that the objective of that was to kind of understand like what is your role, like what is your leadership quality. Yeah, are you a very bossy person? Are you more collaborative? So it's more of a qualitative assessment of your teamwork.
Okay.
Yeah.
The presentation, I recalled a presentation.
Yeah, it was part of that group activity actually.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, after that group activity, we would present, but ultimately you would have a chance to share your point of view. So I
Mm.
think that's what makes that interview process very, very helpful. But But yeah, like you have to basically, and during my time, there was no in-person interview in Asia. So for those who were invited to the assessment day, you had to fly over.
Okay, that's a big commitment, but I think overall it's a good thing to get to know people more and really evaluate, not just their answers to common questions, but how do you interact with your peers at lunch?
Yeah.
That's real life stuff, right? It seems like a good approach. Maybe it's easier to accomplish when you have a class of 90 compared to 700, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
but it seems that something we can understand that IMB values from this assessment day, plus how you explain the leadership development
Yeah.
program. It seems to be something they care deeply about, and they're trying to get to know people and develop them as leaders, as managers. So going beyond the GMAT score and the numbers to
Yeah.
get to know a person, I think.
Yeah, I think the assessment day is also a really good opportunity for applicants to understand the culture of the school because once you're there, you really get to feel like, oh, what it would look like to study at IMT. You can really get the sense if this is a school for you or if it's not a good fit. I think, yeah, although it's a big commitment, but ultimately I feel like it's definitely worth
Could you talk a little bit? It's in Lausanne, a kind of a small town in
it.
Switzerland. Anything you can tell us about that for those of us who've never been to Switzerland?
Because I was so busy with work, not work, with school. I didn't really have a lot of opportunity to travel, even within Lausanne. But it's a beautiful city. There's only about 200,000 people in Lausanne. Like very pristine, very expensive, super expensive. But the I think the pace is very slow.
Okay.
Yeah, like you just live in Lausanne. You enjoy life. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a very different vibe compared to like Taipei or like Hong Kong, those cosmopolitan cities.
So a place you can really focus on your studies,
Yeah, perhaps a little bit too much. I wish I could enjoy Lausanne more. That's
but very beautiful. I've never been there either, but the pictures I've seen are often very stunning.
oh yeah, and
The
actually
scenery, the
it
lake.
is. Yeah, it's definitely not photoshopped. It's exactly as it is.
So it sounds like you were very, very busy, as you said, learning, growing, and now graduated a few years ago, and you've been back working for multinational companies again. So could we reflect on this thinking, from pre-MBA to post-MBA? How do you
Sure.
think you changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the second part of our MBA program, as part of the PDE, they offer a one-to-one counseling session with a certified like psychologist or Jungian psychoanalyst, whatever you call it. And then the objective of that is really to help us get outside of the IMT bubble because we're just studying too much, and it's really an opportunity for us to kind of get perspectives on others and on yourself and really trying to shift gear from a really fast-paced performance-focused environment to start to try to slow down a little bit, try to being reflective, and I think most importantly is to make sure that you are okay. There's just a lot of things that has happened during your MBA. For a lot of my classmates, they discussed their challenges in job search, their challenges in group work. But for me, I spent a lot of time talking about like myself, like my life in general. So my upbringing, I kind of looked into the big decisions that I made throughout my life. We didn't really discuss the like what happened here, like the logic, the reasoning of why I made those choices, but it was more about processing what's here, what's underneath.
Okay.
And I think those processing was really, really therapeutic. And the outcome of those sessions was it gave me more clarity in terms of what I'm looking for in my life. That sounds very ambiguous, but it's essentially having a very clear purpose and clear value that's kind of supporting that purpose. Once you have more clarity around those, I think it gives me more clarity to make the big decisions. Even until today, like when I have a a challenge, when I have a dilemma, I would always go back to those learnings that I had in IMD. And actually, after IMD, I actually received a couple of job offers. And then, one offer was from a consulting company, which is based in China, a really good package, really good brand name. And then I had this other offer from Domino's. And I think I had to choose between those. And I think it was really because of the learning that I gained from IMD helped me decided that, I want to work on something that is fun, that can, provide a better experience for group gathering occasions. Yeah, so I think that's, yeah, kind of like the biggest takeaway from IMD.
I think that's interesting because I think a lot of MBA graduates are likely going to have a few offers to choose from, and they might struggle with balancing, what's more important, location, pay, title. So I think it's really important to understand what you want, right, and what
Yeah,
would make you happy. And a lot of people don't just.
yeah,
That's just something we overlook, I think.
yeah. Like money doesn't make you happy; it reduces your unhappiness. That's kind of how your brain processes.
Very wise. Thank you, Will, for that nugget of wisdom. I'm going to keep that in mind. Okay. Any other impacts on your career? Now you're back in a strategy role.
Yeah.
Can you see the MBA like influencing your performance? Is
Oh,
there anything
definitely.
you can say about that? Or how can you see it in your performance?
Yeah, I think the general management courses at IMD really helped me kind of weaponize me in a way that I kind of understand every aspect of the business better. For me, it was really easy to kind of connect the dots or understand the second level or third level implications of a business. Whereas most of the my colleagues in my company, sometimes they've worked in that specific function for a very long time. They don't really have perspectives on like your marketing, your operations, or IT, and they struggle to kind of connect those dots. So I think in my role, it's really important that you kind of have knowledge of like a little bit of everything, but most importantly is to figure out and prioritize what's really driving business and focusing on what matters. So yeah, I think MBA really helped became a better strategy manager.
I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to learn more about IMD today. I think they should start marketing themselves more in Taiwan. Are you listening, IMD admissions? Let's put some more effort into the Taiwan market because I think it is a really good program and more people should know about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. I think
not that we're trying to promote IMD today, but
I thought we were.
you are. I'm
Okay,
not.
yeah, okay, sure.
But I do think has a really good reputation in Europe, and I would like to invite them to spend more time advertising and marketing themselves here. But I'm glad you had a great experience. It's great to see your progress from 2016 until now.
Yeah.
Great to see you here in our office. And as you mentioned, you're at Domino's Pizza now, right? So
Yeah.
I have one more question, which is, what's your go-to pizza?
I'm a very classic guy, so I just go for pepperoni and jalapeno.
Okay, traditional. He's not like the normal Taiwanese pizza eaters.
Oh yeah, Taiwanese people.
No
they love-
seafood
No.
and mochi on your pizza.
Big blood.
Some strange flavors over here, but anyway, do what you like, But really, thanks for being here. It's a pleasure catching up with you. Glad you're doing well, and please keep in touch.
Of course. Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone.